Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Yes, another one of those Tottenham Hotspur days. I was trying to think of positives about the day. Christian Romero, the Brentford Community Stadium. I think that's as far as I got. Oh, the weather was quite nice in the first half. Um, Christian Romero was probably the one player who I think came away with credit on the day. I thought he was actually very good. Lots of really kind of big interceptions and challenges and tackles, and just Romero being Romero. And the stadium was nice. It was quite a nice example of how to build a small new stadium without tons and tons of money for the community. Yeah, it was quite nice. Massive press conference room, by the way, and really nice press seats. Uh, Media room could have been a little bit bigger, but let's be honest, what kind of muppet would actually argue about his free seat and working area in a football stadium in the Premier League? This guy, seemingly. But actually, Tottenham Hotspur. Uh, right, where to start? The team that, has been blazing a trail of goals has decided, no, the Nuno way is the best. Let's go back to not even having a shot on target. Just at the worst possible time. We're going to talk about a little bit later, though, why I'm hoping that it's just about these two games. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that later. But before that, I want to talk about Conte, funny enough. Because Conte, before we go on, there's blame to be shared all around here. I think the players were pretty much poor, Romero aside again. But Conte obviously made some decisions that we're going to talk about as well. And obviously there's a little bit of a lack of flexibility in what he does as well. Although partly that's dictated to him by the squad, I think, as well. But we're going to come to all of that. I want to talk about Conte himself and his demeanour as well, because it was really interesting after the match. So that big press conference room that I speak of, he came in after the game. It took us a while. It was pushing the hour after the final whistle that he came in. And when he did, he was in quite a jovial mood. Maybe not jovial, it's probably too far to say. He was quite calm and analytical and thoughtful rather than, angry and on the warpath or anything. And actually, the reason I said jovial was because when he first came in, he sat in one seat and he was like down here, and he was like really wasn't above where we need him to be. It was a low seat. I'm not saying he's a very small man. It reminds me of the Ant and Dec thing about Dennis Wise. So he tried that seat, was too small, and then did another seat, which pushed across for him, too small again. And eventually he went and got another seat, which he was high enough, and he had a little bit of a laugh about that. He said, so I can see you properly and all of that. So that was unusual in itself, I guess. I don't know. Maybe not so. Maybe some Premier League managers, they all react in different ways. And I feel like with Conte, which I am going to talk about, obviously, is that I feel that he runs through the whole gamut of emotions, every single different kind of way. And, he claims himself that he does it for a reason. I just wonder whether he's a guy that goes through a lot of emotions. And the one we got to see was quite calm and like I say, analytical. He has tried every approach with the players. He's blasted them publicly. He's protected them publicly. He's shouted at them behind the scenes. And yesterday, from what I understand, he did the other way, which is not really saying anything to them after the game. Which, that disappointed dad thing, that kind of maybe that way of dealing that the players think, oh man, he's going to absolutely kill us on the training pitches this week, isn't he? We are done. I don't know whether it was a bit of that, or a bit of everything, but that's what I'm told. That he didn't really vocalise much at all, if anything, in the dressing room, just to let them stew on their performance, I guess. Whether it works or not, we'll see. And as I've said, I don't think Conte was entirely blameless at all for what happened yesterday. It's just the most disappointing thing was that it felt like the final whistle never really blew in the Brighton game, and it just was a continuation of that, which he's not good, and that's not good from a coach's standpoint as well, that he wasn't able to change it. Made one change to the team with Ryan Sessegnon coming in for Sergio Reguilon. We're told, or Conte said, that Reguilon had a groin pain that he had been dealing with. My gut tells me I think Sessegnon probably would have come in anyway, and that may be just, he's saying that to kind of not save face for Reguilon, but I suppose he is. Yeah, exactly that, I guess. But yeah, well, I'm going to talk about wingbacks in a bit. But Cess, unfortunately, and I'm a Cess fan, or a fan of what I think Cess can be for the future. He was very poor indeed, very lacking in confidence. But Spurs, they'd seen what Arsenal had done, and I said it. I don't like to be a "told you so" kind of chap. But I told you so. No, but in I think it was the last video, I said that it was just one of those scenarios where I could see after Arsenal losing 3 games you thought they would have won, they'd go and probably win 2 matches that you didn't expect them to really win, and they did. Although that's not to say that Chelsea and Man United probably put in some of their poorest displays of the season. It's like, I'm sure Spurs fans watching those games like, come on! Of all the times to be like that. Chelsea looked like it was a game that they didn't really have much invested in, which is probably the case for their games this season. They are probably still going to take third, aren't they? It would take an absolute disaster for them not to. And Man U, just an absolute mess at the moment. Which obviously makes it all the more ridiculous that Spurs managed to lose to them twice. But there you go. The top 4 race, though, you look at it and it's like, it says everything, really, that Tottenham and Arsenal have been as poor as they have, inconsistent as they have is probably the best way to say it, yet both hold their top 4 destinies in their own hands. It's essentially, if either of them win all their remaining games, they finish 4th. And let's be honest, the way they're going, probably neither will win all 5 remaining games. But you look at it and it's like, both have lost 11 matches, which is the same amount of games as Brighton in 12th have lost and Crystal Palace in 14th have lost. But interestingly, I looked at it, I was looking back at a few previous seasons, if we say that whoever finishes 4th is maybe going to finish around near the 70-point mark, possibly, that would be higher than the 4th place team in recent seasons. Which goes to show you that it's just, I guess the best way to say it is that gap, isn't it? There's always a gap to especially Man City and Liverpool, and potentially the 3rd place team as well at times. That divide in the Premier League, and Conte, I guess, has been talking about that a lot, and it's really showing this season. I think it looks like it's between Spurs and Arsenal now. I think United have probably, Ralph Rangnick is saying that he thinks it's beyond them now. I'm recording this just before Chelsea and West Ham are about to play, so we'll kind of see where West Ham's hopes lie after this, but I'd imagine they probably feel that they're out of that and they're concentrating more on the Europa League. So again, it comes down to Tottenham and Arsenal. And who knows which way it's going to twist and turn from now on. So look, I'm going to have a little bit of a moan about I guess Conte's system and the inflexibility of it, and how in these last 2 games especially we're seeing teams being able to work it out and how to deal with it. But I must stress, only because I was looking at social media, and I understand social media after a match it's carnage. Of course it is. It is people, walking in mobs with flaming torches looking to burn everything down. I get that, and I get the frustration, I get the emotional side of things. But what I would say is we've got to have a little bit of context as well. It is 2 defeats. Sorry, it's not even 2 defeats. It's 1 defeat and 1 draw. It feels like 2 defeats, I know. But that comes off the back of 7 wins out of 9. And I've seen people talking about getting Conte out and stuff, and it's like, we mustn't forget the bigger picture and the context of the absolute mess that Tottenham were when he took them on in November. And with 5 games to go, Tottenham have their own top 4 spot in their own hands. In November, I would have bitten someone's hand. I probably would have bitten someone's hand off to finish 5th then. And now, it will be a genuine disappointment if Spurs don't finish 4th. You know, back then, I think you would have taken 5th. But now, having been in 4th place, albeit not now, I think it would be, a real disappointment and a feeling of throwing something away if they don't. And I think that makes you look at the bigger picture. Yes, we're going to talk about why these last 2 games and why it hasn't worked. But I think to then chuck away everything that's happened before that, it's a bit of an overreaction. It is. I'm sorry. I know people won't like to hear that, but I kind of feel it is. And that's maybe me being able to step away a little bit from it and look down on it. It helps. Like I've said this before, the whole journalism thing does beat the fan out of you slightly. And you have to kind of look at stuff in a slightly more objective manner. And I think if you spoke to most people outside Tottenham and asked about Spurs season, they'd say pretty much Conte's rescued it. And I think that is really the case. But, 5 games to go. It can still be very, very, very good finish to the season. But if they do anything like they did yesterday or last Saturday, they're not going to do it. It's as simple as that. So the frustration with the system. Look, Conte has 2 main ways he plays. It's a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3. We know this. 3-5-2 is probably the one he's preferred in recent years at Inter Milan. At Chelsea, it was a bit of a mix. It was mostly like a 3-4-2-1 at times, a 3-4-1-2. I guess a 3-4-3, essentially, just with different tags. But the problem with at Tottenham right now is that I get everyone keeps saying, oh, why doesn't he just go with a 3-5-2? He can't really at Tottenham. He doesn't have, and this is partly his fault because he chose to let go of Tanguy Ndombele and Giovanni Lo Celso. But those 2 players are the midfielders that make a 3-5-2 work. You can't play. The only way Tottenham could play it would be to have Winks, Bentancur, and Højbjerg all in that middle. That's not really how a 3-5-2 works because you haven't really got a proper playmaker type in there to make it creative. Otherwise, you are then pretty much playing with a back 8 and then 2 up front. It doesn't really work like that. And we've kind of seen it. I think probably the one time it worked okay was against Liverpool, albeit a very, very understrength Liverpool. Spurs did create chances that day. Tried it again against Leicester, although I think it was Skip in there. I think it was Skip. Yeah, it had been Skip, Winks and Højbjerg. But that wasn't really working, and it was only really when Lo Celso came on, and for Winks, then you had that creative player in the 3, and Spurs went on, to win it. Obviously, I'm not saying Lo Celso was directly involved, but the shape changed a bit. So he's not going to get rid of the back 3. That is the Conte way. That's what he does. That's how he plays. I'd be stunned if he dropped the back 3. I think that is just the way his teams are built upon. But yeah, the 3-5-2. I think the only way around it is maybe if you could convert Kulusevski to be able to play in that way. If he were to sit behind Kane and Son rather than out wide. But again, and we're going to have to keep coming back to this. The 3-5-2 and the 3-4-3 only work, or that the main key aspect of them is that width from your wingbacks. And if your wingbacks are utterly pants, to put a technical term on it, the system just crumbles. Because what you'll see is, with a 3-4-3 especially, is that, and we've seen this in recent games, the opposition will just put another man in midfield. They will crowd it out, and there's less space, less ability to play through. So you have to go wide. And if your wide men cannot do their job, the system falls down. Look, like I say, Ryan Sessegnon came in. Reguilon was poor last week. Really, really poor. Ryan Sessegnon came in, and whether it's a hangover of still being nervous about his hamstrings and just, not pushing himself, again, just didn't really take it. It was sometimes he tried to get to the byline, but then the cross wasn't good enough. And then on the other side, you've got Emerson Royal. Emerson working tirelessly to destroy stereotypes about Brazilian footballers. So fair play to him on that. Honestly, but being serious, at the moment he's not even attempting to try and do something attacking, which is I'd almost rather he did that and won a corner if possible. Because right now, there's moments where I look at him, and if he doesn't have someone alongside him to pass infield to a straight square ball, he just panics. He doesn't know what to do with the ball. He just kind of stands there with it, and by then the entire defence is flooded. And I do feel for Kulusevski as well, because I don't think it's any coincidence that when he had Matt Doherty behind him, we had this great partnership down the right we were able to see. And Kulusevski was confident. Kulusevski knew where he was going, what he had to do. Emerson gets the ball. It's only coming to Kulusevski if Kulusevski is standing right next to him. Whereas Doherty could pick him out with little threaded passes. He could play clever balls through to him. And it's really impacted on Kulusevski's performances. So yeah, really, really poor. Really poor. And that's why I think Conte made that sub, which again we'll come to in a bit, which was a little bit of a controversial one when I said it was about to happen on social media, of Davinson Sanchez coming on. It was purely because I just think he felt he had to shift. Well, there was two reasons to it, but we'll come to that in a little bit. But there is a blueprint. There's a blueprint that's kind of forming in Tottenham matches, and that's especially in games like that against teams that will sit back. And the blueprint is Tottenham score first, bang, that's it. They will score more goals. They will, because the opposition team have to then open up and come at them, and the space behind is what Tottenham. It suits their players. It has always, whether it was under Poch, whether it was under Mourinho, even Nuno as well. We know it's not rocket science. On the counter-attack, Spurs are one of the best in the Premier League. They are. They've got the players to rip you to pieces. And we saw that against Newcastle was a really good example. Newcastle stayed really compact first half. Then they scored, and ironically, they did the opposite. They kind of took confidence from that and started to push on. And Eddie Howe said afterwards, everything I told them to do, they kind of undid themselves. So Spurs got their goal. Second half was like a landslide. And that is the way it works. Whereas, I mean, a good example of that, Spurs have only won one 1-0 game under Conte in 30, I've written it down, 31 matches. That was Davinson Sanchez's last minute kind of headed winner, or winner against Watford on New Year's Day. Every other time, when they've gone on to take the lead, they pretty much have always gone on to score again and again, because that's the way they play. That is, and we know the problem is if they don't take that lead, if they don't get a goal, it doesn't even have to be the lead. Sometimes it's just getting a goal back kind of opens up the other team. And whether that is through a bit of magic from a Kane or a Son or now a Kulusevski, if that doesn't happen, or even a set piece, let's say, if that doesn't happen, Spurs struggle. And they do. It just can't. It feels like an age-old Tottenham problem as well, is getting around deep-lying teams. And, Conte was asked yesterday whether he would consider tweaking his team, maybe switching to a back four or changing with the system a little bit. And he said, if you see in the last two games, I consider our system was good defensively because we didn't concede a goal. But in the last two games, we were a bit poor offensively. I think it's not the problem of the system. It depends on the way you attack. If you bring Davies into play and you go and Kuti, less for characteristics, Kuti Romero, if you weren't aware that Christian Romero's nickname's Kuti, less for characteristics, I think we have to find the right balance offensively and defensively. Before, we conceded more goals in games, but we conceded a lot. No, that's wrong. Someone's written that down wrong. Maybe me. Before we conceded more goals in games, I think he must have been before we scored more goals in games, but we conceded a lot. Now defensively we were better. In the last three games, because especially we played against two teams with great attention, they played a really good game defensively. So this is quite interesting as well. I don't normally do opposition manager quotes, but actually it kind of shows how they knew what to work on. So Thomas Frank, and bear in mind, Brentford again, they were missing three key players. Was it Pinnock, Norgard and Ayer were all missing. There have been big players for them, and they still tactically worked on the system. And look, again, like Brighton, Lloris didn't have a save to make. However, obviously, they had two big chances through Ivan Toney, crossbar and post, they hit. And it was a really infuriating segment in the first half when Spurs kept having conceded corners, and at every corner, Tony was at the back post alone. Spurs were zonal marking, and it was like, you're not marking that zone. You're not picking him up at all. How have you gone three corners without realising that Brentford's top scorer is standing there alone? And each time he had a shot that thankfully was charged down in front of goal. It was bizarre, and I think one went wide. Excuse me. Very, very weird defensive thinking there. So, but anyway, Thomas Frank. He said that they had worked all week on how to face Spurs, but obviously he admitted that doesn't mean it's guaranteed you success, but it gives you a better chance. So he said, in some ways it's easier to prepare for, but it's not that easy to stop. He's talking about the fact that he knows what system Spurs are going to come in with. We've seen before in the last two games that Spurs were the highest scoring team and scoring goals for fun, but no doubt that when you know some clear patterns, personally, I'm like that myself. If we create that more because it also gives a structure to the players, but also if you prepare for some clear situations, you try, of course, to stop it. When it works like it did today for us, then it's fantastic. But there will also be some crucial moments in a game where you have to make a defining block or sprint back. And interestingly, I was asking Conte about, the whole, just the fact that the goals have gone from, 5 in a game, 4 in a game, 5 in a game again, 4 in a game again, to not even getting a shot on target. And he told me that after the Brighton game, they'd been working all week with 10 players behind the ball against, to try and find the solutions in training to that. So his quotes, more story time with Alistair, story time with Conte technically. In the last two games, we've struggled offensively because we found two teams that are very good defensively. Without the ball, these two teams defended very deep, with the whole team with all their players. When you find this type of situation, you need to create the space, also to have players to beat their man in 1v1 situations, to create the superiority. I think this aspect we're working on, because this week, after the game against Brighton, we worked on this aspect to try to, in training, find 10 players behind the ball. In the end, I think this is a consequence when you score many goals. You start to become a dangerous team and the opponent pays more attention. They try to have more balance when they face you. I think today we wanted to get 3 points, but the draw was fair and we have to accept this result and try to continue to work and improve in the situations we can improve. So I asked him, obviously, followed that up and said, but if you've been working all week on training ground exercises with 10 players behind the ball in opposition to you, aren't you really frustrated that you've then got into the match and not found one of those solutions in the entire 90 minutes? And he said, I think not frustration. I know very well that to play this type of game is not easy for the atmosphere, for the intensity, for the opponent, because the opponent played with a great intensity. This is a consequence when you start to climb the mountain. When you go up and up, for sure, the difficulty starts to become more and more. We have to try to face this new challenge because maybe in the past, many teams played against us, not with superficiality, but undervalued us. Now they pay more attention. But in one hand, I'm happy because defensively we were good. To defend the set pieces against this team was difficult. On the other hand, I know we have to improve and to try to create more chances to score. But if you want to get 3 points, if we want to win, you have to score. And that's it. That is it in a nutshell. It kind of almost felt Nuno-y in the last two games. They really have. It's felt like back to those days when there was almost more concentration on defending. And I think Conte said in one of the quotes they haven't conceded in either game. Obviously they did. They conceded against Brighton. And there was a sense yesterday. Remember I said last week, very much the mantra was, if you can't win, don't lose. I kind of felt that was the way this week. They took it to the other extreme of maybe just not being able to get even close to scoring. It was, very deflating. Of course it was, And, I spoke about that midfield three and how, on Dembele or Lo Celso, they work if you want to do a 3-5-2. There was, of course, a huge dollop of irony in the fact that Christian Eriksen would have been perfect for that role. I was watching him closely, obviously. It's a strange experience, I've got to admit. Watching him live after what happened, the horrific thing that happened, there's a little bit of you that kind of watches it like, There is, and there shouldn't be, because obviously he's had the all clear, and obviously he's got this device now inside his chest that would reset his heart if, heaven forbid, anything like that ever happened to him again. But I must admit, you kind of marvel at how fantastic he's playing as well, and how happy he is to be playing. The guy's got a second opportunity, not only in life but in his career as well, and it's very. I'd say it's inspiring. It is lovely to watch, but there is this little element of no. But he was superb, and he did. He proved. I think you make Spurs over 3-5-2 yesterday and put Eriksen in the midfield three. Spurs win that game. I genuinely believe that, especially as his set piece was really dangerous. Like I say, they hit the post, hit the woodwork twice, and it's not least that, but. He was pulling the strings. He was probably one of the best, if not the best player on the pitch yesterday. He would fit in there. He would fit in there like a glove in Conte's 3-5-2, as he did with Inter Milan. It's no coincidence that after about a year at Inter Milan, it just clicked for Eriksen, and he realised exactly his place in the team and what Conte wanted from him. And he became a regular pretty much every game in that midfield three. He played in the middle, the centre of a midfield three as like a kind of a quarterback role for Conte, and they won Serie A together. For Brentford, I think he was mostly on the left. He was kind of dotting around a bit. It was almost like a little bit of a free roll in there, but he was mostly on the left. And he would bring so much to Tottenham. And, I know Spurs have spoken, have had discussions about bringing him in as a free agent, as in amongst themselves. I think there's going to be a queue of competition for him. I don't think he left Spurs, from what I understand, on the best of terms with the hierarchy at the club. But he does love the club, and that was very clear in the way he was yesterday with everyone. And he wants to stay in London, from what I understand, as well, with his family. And, it's quite funny that Conte, way back when he just signed for Brentford, was very clear, no subtlety about it whatsoever, that he wanted to bring in Eriksen. He would be very happy to bring in Eriksen maybe this summer. But actually, as we've had this week's come along and he's been facing Eriksen, he's got a bit more coy, and he's swerved the question pre-match. There was a couple of times it was asked him, he swerved it, very manoeuvred around the subject. The ice cream van again, I swear. I don't know if you can hear it or not. I swear he waits until I do a video, and then he flies by like a rocket. So ice lollies are called a rocket, aren't they? What was it? Christian Eriksen. I do think, especially if Spurs make top four, I think they become quite an attractive proposition for Eriksen. And I do think it makes sense. Of course it does. A free agent of his quality, 30 years old, and he'd become back a winner. Having won Serie A, and would have that hunger of, like I say, a man that's had this second chance as well. I think would be a very different Eriksen to the one that left Tottenham. And I know some people are still miffed at the way he went and the way his performances went in the last year. But yeah, I do think it would be a good deal. Conte was asked again whether he would have fit nicely into that midfield yesterday, and he said, first of all, I was pleased to see Christian play, and to play in this way. You know very well, to speak now about the transfer market, about players that are not my team, I think it's a lack of respect for the team that the player is playing for, and also for my players. For sure, I worked with him for 2 years at Inter Milan, and I enjoyed this. I'm very happy to see him in this fantastic form, because don't forget, only 8 months ago what happened. Now I'm pleased to see Christian play great football at this type of level. Christian is showing great joy to play football. I think when this happens, this type of situation, and when you risk to finish playing football, to play with your passion and to have another opportunity, I think now he's enjoying it totally. And actually Thomas Frank as well afterwards, he didn't sound too positive about the prospect of Eriksen sticking around, but obviously he hopes he will. He said, I would love to say that I'm confident, I'm very positive, and I'm very hopeful that it will stay, but it will be a decision at the end of the season. I will do what I can, but it's down to Christian. Where it's like everything, if you decide to go to one club or another, you buy that house or another house, you take that job or another job. There must be pros and cons, and I always say if you make it in an 8-2 decision, where you have 8 pros and 2 cons, then you're in a good position. I hope Christian makes the right choice for him and his family, and I really hope it will be us. Yeah, he would. I think he would unlock a lot of the talent that Tottenham have. And, I know there's also a sense of don't go back, don't revisit. But I do kind of feel that this is a different Christian Eriksen. I just feel that as a free transfer, I do think it makes sense. We're not talking about splashing out mega money on bringing him back. I just think it's one of those where, in the current scenario, I think it does make sense. But the thing for the Conte, what he needs to do right now is he needs to get the best of what he's got, because you haven't got an Eriksen. You haven't got that kind of ability to play a 3-5-2 properly right now. And as I say, Kulusevski, he's gone from being an absolute revelation to the last two games being peripheral. I'd say he was slightly more involved yesterday, but still not to the degree of making any real impact on the game. And Sonny, obviously, I was so excited for Sonny because he was just 3 goals off Salah, and you kind of thought, you might actually have a chance of catching him here. And, again, he tried hard yesterday. There were a few dribbles he went on, but ultimately, again, didn't really make much of an impact. And Kane, Harry Kane's he's a bit like the Kane under Nuno right now, struggling for service. Some of his touches weren't great yesterday. He's almost trying to do too much by himself. To be fair to him, he had a couple of key moments. One heading off his own line. Tottenham would have lost the game if that had happened. The other was late on, a very, very nice acrobatic kind of scissors kick, which was one of those where actually, when you watched it back, it was closer to creeping inside the right-hand post, and it actually looked in real time. But still, it's not the Harry Kane. It's not the Harry Kane we've been seeing in recent weeks. It's just like, why now? Why now? It's like the worst time for it to happen. And, Lucas came off the bench. He had one very good run. He kind of did well to kind of hold off the defender who was going up for a high ball, and he ran through, and he was going in that box. And I think it probably would have resulted in something pretty good, but unfortunately he was very cynically brought down, which, look, let's be honest, it was the right thing for the defender to do, as cynical as it was. But yeah, that was probably the sum total of Lucas's involvement. Steven Bergwijn didn't even get his minutes off the bench, his customary couple of minutes this time. And of course, we had the Davinson Sanchez substitution, which, when Spurs are going for a goal or searching for a goal, and I tweet, Davinson Sanchez is about to come on for Spurs. Let's be honest, I knew what the reaction was going to be. I have to do it because that's how I always report who's warming up and who's about to come on. That's what I do. So it wasn't like I deliberately went, here you go. But I just knew what the reaction was going to be. And look, Conte explained it afterwards. I did kind of understand his explanation. He said he brought on Sanchez because he felt set piece-wise Spurs were starting to struggle with what Brentford were doing from not only corners and free kicks, but also from those flat, long throws that they were chucking into the box. So he felt that I'll bring in Sanchez, that's another big kind of head in the box, and then that allows Davies to go out to wing back. I don't think he was going to risk Reguilon because of the groin problem. But look, and also I should point out that Tony hit the post, didn't he, after Sanchez had come on from a set piece, I think it was as well, wasn't it? I get why Conte did it, but was it a substitution to inspire anybody? Of course not. To shore up your defence when you're looking for a goal, he said. I think he explained it somewhere down. Did I write down that quote? I don't think I did, to be fair. But essentially, you remember he spoke about balance. He spoke about it's not always about attacking it. You also do have to fix kind of things at the other end of the pitch. But I think it's just the fact that if your first sub is going to be Davinson Sanchez, I think you instantly know, not only the fans, but probably the players as well, are probably thinking, ooh. And ultimately, he doesn't trust that bench. He doesn't. You can see it. You can see it the way he looks at it. It's like he doesn't believe these players are going to come on and completely change the game. And that's why, and I think I've said this before, I just keep getting the feeling that I think Bergwijn and Lucas could be off this summer. I do. Bergwijn clearly isn't playing, even when he had lots of confidence, even whatever Conte says about him. I don't know. I wonder, is behind the scenes, is he... we look at someone like Matt Doherty, who was out of the team but was training like an absolute nut, and that was noticed, and that got him chances. And this is purely me wondering, is maybe Steven Bergwijn not reacting in the same way to disappointment or not playing? Different players have different psychological kind of makeups and the way they react to stuff. Some need an arm around the shoulders, some need a kick up the backside. It kind of works in different ways, and perhaps that's what's happening with Steven Bergwijn. I don't know, but just the fact that I can't explain otherwise why he's not getting more minutes. But yeah, I do. I think he looks at that bench. I don't think he trusts it. I mean, yesterday he didn't even have a backup right back. Marcel Lavigno wasn't on there. It was Dane Scarlett instead. Dane Scarlett, who obviously is going to be a real talent. There's no look to try and bring him. There's no kind of feeling with Conte that he's going to bring him on. He doesn't see him as a player right now who can change a game. And there's a lack of trust. It's a bench with two academy kids in Harvey White and Dane Scarlett, although obviously Harvey White's 20 now. He's not exactly a kid anymore. And that's where I feel that Conte believes his squad is not at the required level. It's when you look at the bench and the lack of options. Paratici before the match was doing his customary pitch side, I'm on the phone. He was on it for ages, about 20-25 minutes. You'd assume doing... I don't know. It's guesswork. I know everyone says, he's playing Candy Crush or he's ordering his pizza for later or whatever. You'd think it would be to do with stuff going forward because there'd be no real reason to talk to anyone connected with Tottenham on a match day when you're there with everyone that's important to the match day. So you'd imagine it's more discussions about stuff going forward, especially when you're on the phone for that long. Or it could have been just his mum. I don't know. It could have been just a family member. Could just be talking utter rubbish. But yeah, Paratici, I think it's going to be such a busy summer. I was really kind of looking at it yesterday. I was looking at the potential players that can leave. I think that's the key. Because I think I was looking at it and up to 10 players could leave. And look, 10 players is unlikely. If I'm doing one of these videos at the end of transfer window, we're talking about 10 players having left the club. That's a huge overhaul. And it is unlikely. It's very unlikely. But when I looked at it, there is the possibility that can happen. I mean, I kind of wrote some of these down here. Because this is it. I was thinking about incomings. So I was looking at it and I was thinking about it is within the realms of possibility that Tottenham could be looking for a new goalkeeper, because we know, Galini's unlikely to stick around. New left-sided centre-back, which is what Conte wanted anyway. A wing-back potentially on either side, and I'll come to reasons why on that in a minute. A creative midfielder, we know they need that. Another winger at least, if Bergwijn and or Lucas go. And a striker, which we know Tottenham have needed for so long. Maybe you buy a winger/striker, that fills both those. Perhaps that's a way of doing it. But even that alone, the ones I've said, if you were to get one in each one, that's 7 new signings. I was trying to think, was the Mourinho Bale sum? I think that was 6. Was that 6 signings, I think? Potentially it could be more than that. And then, the reason I look at that, and it kind of, I know I often kind of say about people who kind of look at it as like it's playing FIFA or Football Manager and it's a bit unrealistic, but I think this summer we could actually maybe go that way because of how much needs to be done. And the reason I say about 6-7 signings is because of the amount of players that I think have to leave. And obviously there has to be interest in them. But, I was looking at it, obviously, Ondebale and Lo Celso have to be moved on. Whether it's selling them or whether it's loaning them again. Those are 2 players that are going to, you'd think, not be at Tottenham next season. Harry Winks, he'll want regular football. I'd be stunned if Harry Winks is at Tottenham next season because I think he needs to play regular football. And who was it? I can't remember who it was. Someone made a really good suggestion that I know Winks, I don't know whether he'd see it as beneath him or something, but like Fulham coming up, Winks would be really good in their midfield. I'm not one for the Winks hate. I think Harry Winks, with rhythm, with a lot of matches under his belt, rather than coming in and out of a team, I think would be a very good Premier League player. I think he will. I'm not saying he'll be a top player, but I think he'll be a good Premier League player. So I'd be intrigued to see kind of what interest there is in him this summer and how that works. But I think Harry Winks will move on. So that's 3 midfielders alone. Joe Rodon. Joe Rodon has to be playing football next season. Personally, I think he's got 3 years left on the deal. I think that has to be a loan. I would personally make that a loan. I have no say whatsoever in that, but I would make it a loan because I think even from a football sense, it reignites him, it gets his confidence back, and you'll develop him. From a business point of view, I think Joe Rodon, in a year's time, having played a season elsewhere, is worth a lot more than he would if you tried to sell him this summer. That's my personal view. And the reason I said about the wing backs, potentially one in each role, is because I wonder whether Tottenham cash in on maybe Emerson and Reguilon this summer. Emerson, I think unfortunately it's obvious. I think Emerson, if you're playing with a back four, I don't think there's too much of an issue. I think he's a solid fullback, and I think he works within that if he's not having to get forward. Wing back, if Conte is remaining at Tottenham Hotspur next season, Emerson can't be a wing back for him. And I think if that's the case, you need to move him on. I know it's only a year, but I think he has to go. And he'll go perhaps back to La Liga, and I think there'll be interest in him. And I think he'll go back and be a very good right back in La Liga, as he was for Real Betis on loan from Barca. Sergio Reguilon, I just wonder whether he can fully adapt to being a wing back or not. I know Real Madrid have got one more option this summer to buy him, but you're looking at 43 to 45 million for him. I don't think they'll pay that. So I wonder whether he ends up going back to Spain to another club, perhaps. Best case scenario for me, I'd love for him to make it. I like Reguilon. I think he's got the natural abilities to be a wing back, but just for some reason or another, it's not worked for him thus far. And I do feel that Conte prefers Sessegnon over him. And we'll get a good indication of that, I think, against Leicester, and whether he starts again or after what was a poor performance from Sessegnon. And if he starts again, I mean, yes, you could say it might be because of the groin injury and all that with Reguilon, if that's as bad as it's being made out. But yeah, so potentially that's another two players that could go on. So we know Galini probably going to go back to Atalanta. I can't see Spurs spending the 11 million or so on him. And then obviously it looks likely that perhaps Sam Johnson is going to come in and he'll replace that as a homegrown player. So there's another one. And then if you are also losing Lucas and/or Bergwijn, who I think you get money for both, as we know Ajax will pay very good money for him. And Lucas, I think I've said this before, it was a big bid for him a few years back that Tottenham turned down a big bid. I think it was just after the Champions League final that summer. So I think if Lucas was made available for transfer, then I think someone would buy him. Look, Lucas can bring you stuff. I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world at all if he stayed. I'll always say that Lucas needs to up his assists and the chances he creates for others, and probably his goals as well in the Premier League. I think both assists and goals in the Premier League are nowhere near a player of his qualities standard where they should be. But I also think Bergwijn could be a very good player for Tottenham. But if Conte doesn't trust them and he wants them out in the summer, then it's the best thing for all parties. And then you've got Cameron Carter-Vickers, again, perhaps the forgotten man at Tottenham's defence. He's gone to Celtic and he's smashed it. Honestly, he's likely to go there. £6 million deal, rising to 10 if all other objectives are met. That's another departure. So like I said, if all of those players I just mentioned go, that's 10 departures, which is daft. It is daft. That's a huge overhaul of a squad, albeit 3 of them are on loan. You've got Brian Hill as well, who we'll have a little talk about later. But Brian Hill, obviously, we need to know what's happening with him next season. I'd probably imagine it will be another loan, but he'll get his pre-season to prove himself. I'd be surprised if Tottenham sold him straight on, unless it was just a huge bid came in. But I still think he's going to be a proper talent. But yeah, that could be a crazy summer. It could be an absolutely mad summer. If Conte wants to build a squad, maybe it's the right way to go about it. I don't know. Maybe Tottenham do need a big kind of overhaul. Maybe that is the way it needs to be, because you can see the squad is not of what the required quality that Conte is used to dealing with. I mean, just look at his. I've written down that his point. He's a man who wants to be fighting for more than 4th place. He's said it enough. We know Antonio. You look at his points per game average this season at Tottenham. It's 1.77. That is the lowest since his time at Siena 11 years ago. So don't forget, 1.77 is points per match at Tottenham. At Inter, 2.11, 2.12 at Chelsea, and at Juventus is 2 spells, 2.28 and 2.19. He doesn't, he does winning. He doesn't just get by. He doesn't do inconsistency. His aim is to win. And when you've got points, average points that are 2 and above, you're a man who mostly wins his matches as a manager. And this Tottenham squad isn't of the required qualities. It's an interesting one. I was having a discussion earlier before I did this video about the differences in clubs fitting a manager or a manager fitting clubs. Whereas I feel like with Poch fitted the club. He was exactly the manager that Tottenham needed at that time. And almost he fitted the club, but then the club and he kind of merged into this singular philosophy, which was very good and it improved Tottenham hugely, but obviously it hit a ceiling. With Conte, I don't think he's coming into the club and can fit Tottenham. He's not that kind of guy. And I feel like kind of Mourinho was the same. I think you have to turn the club into the manager almost in a way in their image. And I think that's the key with Conte is that Tottenham will have to change what they do. You look at the squad yesterday and you see a lot of young and inexperienced players. And I've said this before, but I think this has to be a summer where you look at some older heads that come in because there's got to be more people who in these scenarios know what it takes to win and they know how to impact a game. They know how to be clever in certain situations. They know, Conte came out with a quote pre-match about, I'm starting to feel that this team is learning that they is starting to hate to lose. You should always hate to lose. I was writing that. You just kind of feel like, oh, duh. Of course they need to not. Who likes losing? Who accepts losing? I mean, his point was that he expects real winners go home and they are angry after a defeat. He's not wrong. I do think we've seen that at Tottenham. I don't think there's this burning anger when they lose matches and there's almost been an acceptance of what's happening. And I do agree with that, but that should not be the way. That should not be the way at all. And that's why I think you bring in players who just despise losing, absolutely will not countenance the even thought of it. Like I say, I'm sorry to keep harkening back to it, but having watched the Juventus All or Nothing documentary, it's such a world away from the Tottenham one. I'd say the Tottenham one was probably more entertaining because it's Tottenham. There's always something daft happening. But in terms of the Juventus one, just watching Chiellini, Buffon and Bonucci teaching these young players coming in like Chiesa and Kulusevski and Weston McKennie as well, teaching them like what it means to be a Juventus player, what it means to, we don't lose. At this point, up to that season under Pirlo, Juventus had won like the last 9 league titles? They didn't do losing. And just that mentality, you just don't have that at Tottenham. It's such a different mentality. And I just wonder, are we at the point now, and this summer will maybe prove it, do you have to change what Tottenham Hotspur is? Do you have to fit Antonio Conte rather than Antonio Conte try to squeeze his kind of square peg into the round hole that is Tottenham Hotspur, as it were? Because he knows he needs a better squad. He does. He was asked about, there was quite a frank question, it was a good question, was your system needs good wing backs. Essentially, are you going to go and get them? Because implying that, as was rightly on the evidence of yesterday, Sessegnon and Emerson were not up to the job yesterday. And he said, now I repeat, it's not fair to speak about the situation that we can improve or not. I think I'm very happy to have this group of players. I'm trying to exploit every single player and improve every single player. I think also for this reason today, with 5 games to play, we're talking about Tottenham in the race for the Champions League places. Don't forget in November the big trouble Tottenham were in. Now to stay with 5 games, to go to the possibility to stay in this race means the players improved a lot and we're doing a great job. We have to know in this last month, maybe if we give 120%, maybe it's not enough. We have to try to increase and go 150% to try to reach this target. He's not denying. He knows he needs better wing backs because he is. Otherwise, you say in that scenario, no, they're good enough for this job. I can improve them. He didn't. He chose not to. He was polite about it, but he chose not to. And it does. I am fascinated by the whole aspect of what this summer will be because last summer was an utter joke, a farce of a summer. It was. I just don't want this summer to be. I want it to be an exciting summer. Obviously, top four would put a massive kind of gloss on it to go and do that. But I mean, let's see what happens with these games to come, because what I would say is these two matches have very much followed a pattern because of the opponents. I do think that's the case. Whereas the next three games, albeit more difficult on paper, Leicester, Liverpool and Arsenal, they are three teams that will not sit back, and they will give Tottenham the space that suits Tottenham to attack. I'm not saying they're going to win everyone, but what I'm going to say is that I'd be very surprised if in the next three games Tottenham don't have a shot on target again. I think these will be games where Tottenham will be able to open up and play the football that they properly play, and I think perhaps Conte knows that, because I can't see. I mean, Leicester obviously got the European games either side. I'd be stunned if they come there just to sit back and try and hit Spurs on the break. I would be surprised if that's all they do. But even if they do try to hit them on the break, that in turn will leave spaces behind. And obviously Liverpool are never at Anfield going to do that. And Arsenal and North London Derby are not going to sit back, I don't think, and do that. I just don't think they've got that in them either. So, of course I'd written that down. Leicester and Liverpool. Spurs scored 5 times against the two of them in their last couple of meetings under Conte. So they are teams that hopefully there will be chances. The key will be is remaining tight at the back, and more performances like Christian Romero's. Romero was very good. Dyer wasn't great. Dyer had a lot of sloppy passes. He was pretty poor in possession. Davies was all right. When he switched to wing back, I'd say he actually was better in the centre back role. When he went to wing back, he essentially fell into a similar trap of not really creating. But yeah, and obviously we had Bentancur. I haven't even spoken about Bentancur and Højbjerg in the middle, who were just meh. They weren't moving the ball quick enough. They weren't getting it through the attackers. That could be because of lack of movement from the attackers, perhaps. But again, another meh performance. And it's games like this where I do feel you miss Oliver Skipp. Fresh from his new 5-year deal. Just the intensity and the tempo that Skipp brings to a team, it's something different. Even if he was coming off the bench, I feel he would have come into those last 2 games and he would have changed. He makes other players want to fight for the ball as well, and especially when you're playing a team who played with a lot of intensity and desire, like actually Brentford and Brighton both did. I feel like Skipp comes in and he matches that. I think that would have made a big difference. I'm not saying Oliver Skipp was the answer. I'm not saying he's the creative outlet that Tottenham needed, but in terms of raising the levels of other players around him, I think he does that. And I think that's why people see him as a future captain, because I do think he has that kind of knock-on effect for other players. But, we shall see what happens. This isn't the Tottenham Hotspur that Conte wants right now, but it's the one he's got, and he's got to get the best out of them for the remaining 5 matches. Because I'd be surprised if Spurs have to win all 5 games to do it. Because I don't think, famous last words, that Arsenal will do that as well. I think Arsenal are like Tottenham. I think they're going to be inconsistent. I could be completely wrong. They may go on a run now with the confidence going from the last 2 games. But I feel that it's still going to be a battle of who's going to be the least inconsistent. Or the most consistent would have been the easier way to say that. And I think that's what you'll find. Because, it isn't the Tottenham Hotspur that Conte wants right now. It's the one he's got. And he kind of needs to, I think, if he gets the Champions League, if he gets that 4th place, then it means Paratici can make it the Tottenham even better that Conte wants. You can go for a higher standard of player and everything. Whereas if you don't, I think they still have to do it. I still don't think there's any excuses. It just makes it a little bit easier to do. We should also talk about Conte and PSG. Obviously, some reports coming out of one French outlet over there that I think it was something like the report said that Conte has set his dreams of managing PSG. Don't we all dream of managing a league? Sorry, that was very facetious, but I don't know. I can see the appeal of managing PSG in terms of the stars, and obviously you're going to be very well recompensed. But I do think managing for a top manager in Ligue 1 is probably not going to be the peak of your career. I feel like it's more a step at some point in your career. And that's with no disrespect to French football, but it's not on the level of the other, certainly English football, Spain, or probably Italian right now. So in terms of that, look, I've spoken to a few people around Conte, and they say it's not true, as they would, because let's be honest, you're talking about one guy who's currently employed by a club, talking about a club who have a manager currently employed. So yes, if I was around that manager, I would also be saying that. There's a part of me, there's a cynical side, maybe the journalist side of me, that thinks, look, it's a little bit of information that whether it's right or wrong, it's no bad thing, I think, for Conte and his camp to have out there. I think it puts more pressure on Levy. I don't think it's great for Tottenham Hotspur, and it's a version of the Harry Kane stuff that we had towards the end of last season. I don't think it's helpful in that respect, but I think perhaps if I'm being cynical from Conte's point of view, it's maybe not the worst thing. I think timing is rubbish. Maybe it's the kind of thing that comes out just after the season. I don't know, but I don't know where that info's come from. But like I say, I think there's an angle to it that I could see, perhaps, if not Conte, some of those around him seeing it as a good, like I say, applying a bit of pressure to Daniel Levy, which has always worked so well in the past. So that's how I kind of am. Sorry, I know I know people are probably looking for a definitive answer on that, but I do kind of feel like it's more if it is true. Like I say, it's people claim that there is nothing to it, but if there is anything in the releasing of or the escaping of that, if there's anything in that information getting out there, then I think it's to serve a purpose, perhaps more likely than actually being something that's going to happen. Because for me, I don't get Antonio Conte at PSG. Because let's be honest, PSG, they automatically they expect them to win the Ligue 1 title. What PSG want is the Champions League title. Antonio Conte, if you're going to say one criticism about his CV, it is the lack of European silverware on it as a manager. So I'm not entirely sure whether I don't know whether Conte would value winning the league title in France as a huge thing for his CV. I don't think so. I think he'd probably rather maybe go, if he were to leave, would be to go back to Italy and maybe take on a team there and win the league again with them, maybe with a team that's not expected to, or who knows what's going to happen at Juventus this summer. I don't know whether, were they fourth, and I don't know whether Allegri stays. I don't know how that all works. But PSG and Conte would be an odd marriage for me. Look, he would take on some of those egos in that dressing room. I get that. But who knows? Poch may end up staying there. I think it's unlikely. Obviously, the irony is we're talking about all this, and Poch has just won his first league title yesterday with PSG. But I don't know. It just feels like a real summing up of kind of how things work at that football club. The fans were still absolutely fed up, and I think a load of them left the stadium before the game was even done to go and celebrate outside because they're still so annoyed at PSG going out of the Champions League. Which, look, we often talk about Tottenham fans or any fans from any clubs being a bit entitled and feeling that not spoiled, but my goodness, when you're not even going to celebrate your team winning their league title with them because you've and booing them in that game as well. I mean, like, wow, that is a very different kind of football club. That is incredible. I was very surprised, and will Poch be there next season? Who knows? Who knows? We could have the bizarre scenario if that report were to be true. We could have the very strange scenario of Conte maybe going there, and Daniel Levy in an attempt to try to stop any protests that would very much happen, I think, if Conte were to walk, of bringing Poch in to try and stop them, which would be interesting. Would it be a different Poch? Would enough time have passed? Would Poch, having won having a league title to his belt, he won a couple of trophies last season, is that a different Poch? And also one that's learnt from dealing with the huge egos that you get in a club like PSG and the massive names. I don't know. Personally, I hope right now that Antonio Conte, takes Tottenham into the Champions League into the Champions League for next season, and then he gets what he wants in the summer. Because I do believe that Tottenham can't kind of keep plodding along in the way that they always have, because it hasn't worked for them. They need to adapt and change this summer, and yeah, Conte is a winner. Like I say, I can grumble about the last two games, but ultimately he has still improved Tottenham hugely from what they were when he came in. And if he can sort them out for the last five games, like I say, it's still in their hands. If they play anything like they have in the last two games, it's very quickly not going to be in their hands. But he can. So yeah. Let's see. Let's see what happens. In terms of what's going on elsewhere for Tottenham players out on loan, there's still a few that are playing today that obviously I can't do yet. But Brian Hill played in the Copa del Rey final yesterday. Unfortunately, lost with Valencia against Betis in a penalty shootout. So he didn't add himself to the long list of players that have gone away from Tottenham to win trophies, which still makes me laugh. Includes Carlos Vinicius this season. Woo! And obviously, Poch has got to win his first league title away from the club as well. Although, look, yes, PSG should be winning that league. Don't get me wrong, they should. But still, for him, it's an achievement, a big first in his career. Troy Parrott got an assist. MK Dons beat Morecambe 2-0. Kian Atete played about 82 minutes, I think it was, for Cheltenham, but they lost 2-1 at home at Bolton. I think Tongi Ondemele still out injured. Don't think he was in Lyon's squad yesterday. Niall John, again, not in another Charlton squad. What a kind of a waste of a loan that's been. Probably would have been better now, I think, staying at Spurs, getting under 21, under 23s football under his belt, and maybe being involved in some of the squad. He might have been on the bench occasionally for Tottenham. Who knows? Probably would have fought with Harvey White for that role. That hasn't worked out at all. That loan. I think Cameron Kostovikas is playing today. I think it's right. Celtic. I think I've got a cup match, and yeah. So. What else? Little bits of housekeeping. Pre-season, I think we're going to get more announcements coming probably this week about matches. Spurs have been in talks to sort out their final. They've got to announce their second game in Korea, which will be the weekend after the Wednesday game against the K-League side, All Stars. Then they've been finalising talks for a game the weekend before the season starts, because Lady Gaga has the stadium, so they've got to be away, and that one will be in Israel. And then the previous weekend before that, there's a match which they're going to announce this week, which unfortunately I can't say exactly what it is right now, but it's going to be a good game. It'll be a good friendly. But yes, Korea's going to be fantastic. I'm trying to finalise getting out there now as well, once I've got all the proper dates and everything, because can't wait. The Korean people are just every Korean person I've ever met has just been so warm and interesting and funny as well. Quite good humour as well. Obviously, there's a lot of Korean people that get very upset if I give Sonny a lower rating than they want to see. So they probably wouldn't have been happy yesterday. I think I gave. Everyone pretty much got a low mark apart from Romero yesterday. But no, Korean people don't like it when I give low marks to Sonny. I appreciate that. He's their main man, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't play particularly well. I think mainly the criticism is when Korean people feel that or anyone that does ratings, have marked Sonny lower than someone else that they feel wasn't as good. I get that. But hey, that's what ratings are. They're all very, very subjective things, and we all see games in different ways, and that's the beauty of football. But there you go. I think that's everything I could possibly have covered. I didn't actually think this was going to be a particularly long video because it was such a meh game. But there you go. That's Tottenham. They make you kind of talk and rant and say things. So there you go. Right. Conte's press conference, I think it might be potentially Friday this week rather than Thursday. I think he's quite a superstitious guy. So I think when they've been not playing so well, I do think he might change it up. It's a Sunday game anyway, so it does lend itself more to a Friday press conference. But there you go. So I think if there's anything else I've missed, I don't think there is. I think we've covered everything. I think we have. if there is anything, let me know in the comments, and I'll try and remember to talk about it next week. But yeah, there you go. Must admit, for anyone, I'd rather have been to Sorrento again. Well, that was a nice stadium. People who have watched my little kind of travel vlog I did from Sorrento, which is also on this channel, will know what I'm talking about. And actually, for those who watched that, it might be weird now seeing me back with this blue wall and the sofa behind me, because I was able to go to a very nice part of Italy. I might do more of those in the future. I did quite enjoy doing it, and it seems to have got a nice reaction, which is lovely. Yeah, maybe try and do one from Korea if I can this summer. Yeah, but there you go. Anyway, sign a waffle. So I'm going to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.